I've seen posts on social media, some guys frowning on it though, and knocking other fishermen for fishing at night.
But once they hit a certain size, there's like a X gene that kicks in and they just become meat eaters, crazy, aggressive fish.
How many guys do you think would have packed it in and gone home after even 3-4 hours of fishing and not catching anything?
I like Court's directness. Dumb.
Just dumb.
It's just dumb. All right, folks, here we are at the Western Hunt Expo. Welcome to the Gritty Bowman / Gritty Angler podcast. I'm here with my illustrious partner in crime, Chad Nelson.
Better looking partner.
Of the Gritty Angler. And we also have with us today Derek Olthuis from Western Waters Media, from
Trout Academy. My own little Instagram at Derek Olthuis.
That's right. And we have with us also Cortney Boice.
Yeah.
And Blue Halo Gear.
That's right.
Awesome. Welcome, guys.
And what is Blue Halo Gear, real quick?
Well, we do fly rods. We're a fly rod company.
Yep.
And we're just starting to branch out and do a couple other things, too. We're going to do some outerwear here coming up really soon. And it's going to be sweet.
And for those who don't know, Western Waters Media makes killer videos, films, fishing films, and you're both part of that.
Yeah.
So,
in fact, is your film in tonight? Is there there's a film festival tonight? Right?
There is a film festival. It's not the same one.
Okay.
Yeah, different one.
So you guys, that's where I met you, was at the Denver Fly Fishing Show, and then I was able to catch your film at the Fly Fishing Film Tour, correct?
Yeah.
And that film that you guys have in there is awesome, like on another level of
dude.
Cool, super cool.
We're lucky.
So tell us about mousing or giant, like. So I've seen some images where some dude has a big hairy fur ball that he's yanking across the water, and it's jumping. And I actually have seen mice like jump in and swim and look exactly like that.
Yep.
But you're telling me that big fish eat those things.
That's what we're telling you.
That's awesome. It's like great white sharks and humans, only trout and
a mouse.
And a mouse.
Yeah.
I like it. I like that. Under the water, dunna, and then bam. Fish are so, we were talking about this earlier, fish are so
carnivorous.
Violent. Like they are predators. Extreme predators. They're not eating like algae.
Some do.
No. Well,
but the ones that we like to kill stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, people that don't fish a lot maybe aren't familiar with it. They don't realize how aggressive, how carnivorous, especially the trout species of
they're like
fish
the great whites of the river.
Yep. Totally. And a lot of people have the mentality that the trout are just these refined fish that only eat a dry fly or a little nymph or something, which is true to some degree. But once they hit a certain size, there's like a X gene that kicks in and they just become meat eaters, crazy, aggressive fish. And that's kind of the fish that you're looking for when you're fishing a mouse.
How old does a trout get?
Varies on the species and their diet, but an average trout is probably going to live about 5 years. But a big trout, once it switches over and becomes piscivorous or really like a meat eater, a fish eater, then it's going to extend its life out. And some trout, will live 10, 11 years, and other trout, like a lake trout, way up in northern Canada and stuff, they'll live like 150 years.
What?
Yeah.
What? You are making crap up. That makes me feel bad when I kill something that lives 50 years.
Yeah.
Dude, you just killed like a 100-year-old tortoise.
Yeah.
That just seems wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lake trout up north you got to be careful with. Even lake trout here in Lake Utah and Bear Lake will live 30 years.
Man, I somehow I did not know that. Wow. Okay, so what's this thing about them switching? and going
Piscivorous.
Piscivorous. That's just a sweet word.
It's like
what is
coddle peduncle?
Yeah.
Every time we have Derek on, he keeps throwing out these new words.
I do like coddle peduncle, and for those of you listening, that's a real thing, and you should go check it out. Google coddle peduncle.
Be careful.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to figure out the spelling on your own. But what's piscivorous? Piscivorous?
Piscivorous, yeah. So piscivorous means fish eater. So basically, a trout will go from eating insects and things like that to switching over and becoming almost exclusively a meat eater. And a large part of that diet is going to be smaller fish. But, this is where the mousing kicks in is they will eat mice, frogs, snakes. I mean, there's a YouTube video out there of a guy catching a big rainbow trout on a rattlesnake pattern.
Wow.
So
yeah, even crayfish.
Are you kidding me?
No. Totally cool. This guy, I mean,
wow.
like a monster fly, quote unquote fly, that he just kind of lobs out there and swims it back and it pounds it.
Your rattlesnake pattern.
Yeah.
Seems like that could end badly for the fish. but perhaps not. So they'll eat all that stuff.
Yeah, they're just
I have seen them like eat birds, like on like YouTube videos or something. Like a little chickadee comes down and it's lunch.
So that change, Derek, is that happen more around a certain size, or is it age related?
More size. There will be certain fish in like an age class that will have a better genetic, and it will just start eating fish sooner. It's going to grow bigger. It's like if you have somebody who's a bodybuilder and they're more dedicated to it and they're eating more, they're working out more, just like a fish, who's more aggressive, eating more, it's going to get bigger for his age class, and there's going to be a switch that happens where all of a sudden these little bugs aren't doing it. He's not going to get as much return for eating a bug as he is a bigger meal. You can eat once and be done for a few days.
Oh, for sure.
I used to have, I had a lot of different fish tanks and stuff. I just think fish are rad. And I had like cichlid tank, African cichlid tank. It was like 200 gallons, and it was just like fish, like lots of cichlids, and
it was sweet.
And then I've had like coral reef tanks, and like the full on everything, like a piece of the ocean in your house. And I just like watching fish and seeing their behavior. But one thing that was interesting about fish that I experienced over time was they'll often not outgrow their enclosure. So a certain fish could reach a foot in size, but as long as I kept it in a 30-gallon tank and fed it and kind of normal, it would just be appropriate for that tank. Some species weren't like that. Some would just keep growing no matter what. But it seemed like 90% of the fish we had would stay, especially when you're talking like African cichlids and some of those species, they would stay smaller and not outgrow the tank. Is that kind of true for trout as well, or is that like you were mentioning we were talking one time, you were talking about how some of these fish are kind of stunted. They're not reaching their full potential. There's just not enough food, not enough cover or whatever, but they get big, but they're not big.
They got big heads, but their bodies just seem stunted.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, to some degree, there is that. If you go to a small little pond or something that doesn't have a lot of food in it, you're probably not going to find a real big fish unless there's just some weird phenomena that's going on and there's like tons and tons of food happening. So there's certain reservoirs in Utah or other states where they maybe have something getting chopped up out of like a dam, and those fish are eating a lot of food. And that's kind of like, an unusual thing, but for a small little creek or something below a dam, it's just absolutely being pumped full of protein, and the fish can take advantage there, versus in a normal situation in that same size creek, they're not going to get as big.
Yeah. Okay.
I last summer I took my son up into the high Uintas here and fished some of those high mountain streams. I mean, I'm talking our base camp was 10,000 feet elevation.
Yeah.
but we're up there in these little streams fishing for brook trout. And it's just loaded with these brook trout, but they were all exactly the same size, like 8 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. But bigger heads for an 8-inch body. And you could tell there just wasn't the food source to sustain that many brook trout.
Yep.
And they were maxed out.
Yep.
8 inches. And what's amazing, too, up there, though, is you're surprised that those fish even survive the winter. Because these streams are like, in sections, it's a foot wide.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 feet deep, but it's amazing they make it through.
Crazy. They're tough. They're resilient.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So when and why would you use a mouse pattern or a frog or like Derek, or like when and how do you use that? Why would you use it?
So Utah has a really good prime example of a place to fish a mouse, which is Strawberry Reservoir. So it's like the most popular body of water in Utah. And around Strawberry, there's just a large number of mice. And they jump in the water like you were talking about earlier, and they cruise around, and the fish see it, and they take advantage of it. And like Phil Tuttle, who is part of our Western Waters media and stuff, he's a biologist, and he's done studies and cut open like 14-inch brown trout and found like 5 mice in one fish's stomach. So, I mean, it can be, like, given the right circumstances, be really like a productive food source for the fish.
But it's weird, too, because, those fish, a lot of times they'll just eat smaller bugs all the time, and then sometimes they'll just switch it over, kick it into high gear, and just pound mice. Sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes the big fish don't eat it.
Really?
But it's definitely like one of those things where you're not going to catch as many fish fishing a mouse than you would some other tactic. So if you want to catch tons of fish, it's probably not the greatest unless you're in some place that's just insane. But a lot of times it's the bigger fish that key in on them, and that's a lot of times why we chuck mice at them.
So you're using it to, let's say you're catching, little fish on every, or little, 12 inches, whatever. And so you're like, okay, I just want to target the big guy.
Yeah.
So you throw on the big
Yep.
bait.
Yeah, you're like, I've caught enough fish today. I just want to go for that big guy now.
Yeah.
So do you have any stories of where, that's like really paid off, where you're catching something huge on a bait like that?
Oh, yeah. Court's caught some real big browns on mice patterns. And once again, referring to Phil Tuttle, Phil and I were out one night on a relatively small body of water in Utah. And, we were kind of hoping that we'd heard rumors that there was a big fish in this small little, I guess it was a lake.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we heard rumors, and we started fishing different streamer patterns and mice patterns and stuff. And we started probably, I don't know, like 6, 7 at night and fished through the evening. And it wasn't until like 2 in the morning, neither of us had even had a single hit yet. And, Phil is stripping his mouse pattern across, and you can just see in the light this little wake, and you just hear almost like a toilet bowl flush, a bloop, at the end there. And with a mouse, what you do is you're stripping it short, quick little strips, so it moves like an inch at a time. And so when you hear a fish come up and eat it, they'll sometimes miss it. You just keep stripping. You just keep going, and sometimes they'll miss it and come back 3, 4, 5 times for it trying to eat this thing, and you just keep stripping even though you're hearing this bloop, bloop, bloop on your bug, and, all of a sudden you come tight and you set the hook. So Phil's stripping, hear this big old toilet bowl flush, and just bonk, comes tight, sticks this fish, and, I jump out in the water to net it. He's playing it, and I flip on my headlamp as it gets close because I didn't want to spook it before. Yeah. And I see this thing, and it is absolutely just like silly big. It was a 34-inch bow, and it was just absolutely yoked, like thick body. And we were just in disbelief. And I yell out, Phil still hadn't seen the fish because he was behind me and my light was being blocked.
Yeah.
And I'm just laughing. I'm like, dude, Phil, this thing is enormous. And he's like, is it over 30 inches? And I'm like, yeah, this is definitely over 30 inches. So there are times when, you pay the price a little bit, you miss out on the numbers game, and you can be rewarded with something.
So you guys had fished literally 8 hours before that happened. How many guys do you think would have packed it in and gone home after even 3-4 hours of fishing and not catching anything?
Most.
I'm pretty sure that most people are a lot smarter than we are, and they're like, oh yeah, this isn't working, where we just keep beating the dead horse.
Yeah.
So
it is. Yeah. The whole time you question yourself, like, dude, I'm doing this for hours. And a lot of times, like, you just go home empty-handed. Like, you don't catch a fish,
Yeah.
But we know that eventually something's going to eat it. And so we just keep hold to that hope that something will eat it eventually. And that's what drives us, dude. Because sometimes, and it's pretty crazy too, because sometimes you will catch like, a little 13 or 14 inch fish that is ambitious, like trying to swallow a big mouse. Dude, that's awesome. More power to you, Those are the fish that get big one day because they are, like, they want to get to be like their big brother.
Yeah.
And they want to, like, get big fast, and that's how they do it, is they just chomp big stuff, opportunistic.
That is crazy.
So fishing at night, I know most guys mice at night because that's when the mice are out. Have you guys ever tried it during the day, though?
Oh, yeah.
Quite a bit.
How are the results comparable?
Depends on the location.
Yeah.
Court and I, when we filmed Arctic Unicorns, went to Fortress Lake in British Columbia, and Court was mousing right in the middle of the day.
Yeah, quite a bit. We did a lot of mouse research with brook trout and fished them a lot in the daytime, a lot at night. And we found that most of the time at night, they wouldn't eat or rarely would eat. So it was kind of weird because I would say they're the least likely to eat a mouse in the evening out of every fish that we fish for sure.
For some reason, it seems to me most mousing pictures I see are brown trout. And maybe that's just guys I know here in Utah posting those pictures, and for some reason there's, a lot of brown trout here. Have you guys noticed a difference between the species of fish, like you just alluded, brook trout?
Yeah, so there's actually some scientific research published out there that talks about why that might be, and I'm kind of a bit of a nerd, honestly, where I would way rather read something scientific than maybe some guys like How to Do It article. So Phil and I, he's a biologist, we kind of geek out over the scientific stuff. And anyway, brown trout have better eyesight than all other species of trout, and they see better at night than, let's say, a rainbow or a brook trout. And so that's why you probably see a lot of pictures of guys holding brown trout caught on a mouse versus like a rainbow or something. And yeah, you still obviously are going to be able to catch a rainbow or a brook trout or some of these other species on a mouse, but just not like you would a brown trout. They're just designed to be predatory and feed at night and ambush under the cover of dark.
Are they brown trout are not native to the United States?
They're not, no.
Or this continent?
Nope.
German browns is what they call them.
Wow.
But there's tons of them. Like,
how do they impact the other fish? Are they not that invasive, like to other fish species, or
browns?
They've been around for a while now? But
they cohabitate well with other fish. But yeah, they definitely. When you've got a fish that eats other fish, then that's a problem, and they eat other fish. So that's why in the West there's so many. Well, all over there's so many browns, and that's probably one of the reasons why you see a lot of browns caught with mice, because most streams have a lot of browns in them. And But yeah, I mean, rainbows are the same way. Rainbows totally eat mice. Cutthroat totally eat mice. You know, we know that. But some places are better. You know, some rivers or different systems are definitely more prolific in throwing a mouse pattern versus something else. Because some places that we fish, we throw mice and you just don't catch fish. Like they just don't eat it.
Yeah.
So
Browns seem to be like the ringneck pheasant now, where we've adopted it. We kind of treat it like it's native now because it's just doing so well everywhere. Canada, U.S.
Yeah. I think some animals displace or wipe out entire populations of other critters, and others come in and they're able to come in without devastating an existing native species, and it's a little more. You can tolerate that species a little more.
yep.
And there's definitely both with brown trout. There's examples where they cohabitate really well, like Court was talking about, and there's other times where maybe in a river where a species doesn't reproduce as well and a brown trout does, that they wipe them out. They reproduce better, they're more voracious, and so they take over.
It seems like when I picture frogs and mice and stuff getting eaten, I picture bass doing that.
Yeah.
But I don't really picture trout as much.
Bass definitely slam stuff, especially topwater
They
stuff.
got that big
They're
mouth.
awesome. Yeah, and they can do it.
Yeah.
Brown trout have big mouths too, though.
They do. Once they get past a certain point, they've got a big old mouth to chomp stuff.
Well, and cutthroat, true. I mean, big mouths, big teeth. I mean, they're just made for eating things that aren't bugs.
Yeah, totally. Especially here in Utah and Nevada with the Lahontan's and they just classified, a new species, the Bear River and the Bonneville cutthroats. They have a lot of teeth. Those three species are really piscivorous, really predatory, and they've got big mouths and they love eating other fish.
I think we all have a lot of scars from those fish and those big teeth.
I know my fingers do. Mostly from unhooking Court's fish, but
Well, what's the story with fishing at night? From the hunter in me, it feels like that's like poaching. Like, it's totally legal?
Some places it's not legal though.
Yeah.
But no, it's totally good. It's like, I guess equivalent to the hunting. It's like hunting in twilight. Like in those dark hours. Like some big elk and deer don't even walk during the day. Like they're gone. They're totally nocturnal, and that's kind of how the fish are too. Like
that's cool.
I've seen posts on social media, some guys frowning on it, though, and knocking other fishermen for fishing at night.
Is it easier?
No, I don't think so.
It may be easier to target larger fish, but only because maybe they're out more. But yeah, that whole debate is
nonsensical.
Dumb.
I mean, it might be a little bit different.
I like Court's
dumb.
directness. Dumb.
Just dumb.
It's just dumb.
And there's unfortunately a lot of that in the fly fishing industry. There's a lot of pretension, and guys think they're super cool for doing it one way or another. And, kudos to them for doing what they love. But at the same time, fly fishing offers so much. Like, why get pigeonholed into one way
to do it?
Totally.
Yeah.
I agree.
We just like to catch fish, so
yeah, if it's legal.
However that is, let's do it.
If it's legal, if it's ethical, I don't care how or when or why you do it.
Yeah. Gritty Bowman, we've been accused of ruining bow hunting because we say it's okay to take, a long shot if you can make a long shot, or it's okay to hunt with a crossbow if it's legal to hunt with a crossbow.
Yeah. Same debate.
I'm like, dude, if it's legal and you can do it, do it. Like, it doesn't bother me at all.
The one thing we think needs to change in fly fishing, especially when it comes to the films and the film tour, is guys need to start eating fish on film. That's my challenge.
Savage.
We're a ways away from that happening.
I'd like to see people acknowledge, fly fishermen acknowledge fish as food.
Yeah.
Fish are food.
So can I acknowledge that right now? Because when Court and I went to Fortress Lake, We had the chef there at Fortress named Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Every day did something with brook trout, and it was the most ridiculous food I've ever eaten.
No, really?
I mean,
yeah.
it was so
I just
good.
think that's it, right? I mean, so much of why I like to hunt and fish is because I like to eat meat and fish.
Yeah.
You know?
I've been smoking trout lately.
Yeah.
Just up on the Traeger, and I'm like, every time I do it, I'm like, dude, I think I'm going to keep like every fish that I ever catch now because it's so good.
Well, I
Right.
think-
Chad and I lived on fish when we were in college together.
Literally. I mean, we were poor.
We would go and catch a haul and bring it home, and that's what we ate like throughout the week.
Yeah.
Yep. I think guys just need to do their research and, come a little more to the middle away from catch and release. Now, I totally support catch and release, and I probably release 95% of the fish I catch, which is probably too many. But guys need to trust the fish biologists. And if they say this fishery can support keeping 3 fish, keep 3 fish.
Here's the thing, and this is something that I feel like a lot of outdoorsmen seem to forget. When you shoot a deer, there's going to be another one that replaces it. That's why it's awesome. Same thing with a fish. When you eat a fish, there'll be another one that replaces it. It's a renewable resource.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's not,
Right. If
you do your homework, like Chad was saying, like you know. But yeah, typically like all your local officials know like what's up. Like if you can keep fish, then
I think it's almost a reaction to a positive reaction to for example, grizzly bears. We have plenty of grizzly now. We can delist them, right? You can even hunt them. There's so many. But there's that, we almost lost them, right, in the lower 48. And so there's that passionate reach out to take care of and bring them back to sustainable levels. But it's hard to reverse that mentality once you've reached those sustainable levels. And like with fishing, we almost lost some serious, like we had to work so hard to restore fisheries and these populations of fish that there's these campaigns against, keeping fish for years and years and years, which was rightly so. Like we needed to not take home a fish. But now in certain areas where they're so plentiful and it's such an abundant resource, such a wonderful resource for not just nature, but for human consumption as we're part of nature, I just think, I applaud the sentiment, but at the same time, I see it now as a renewable resource that if we actually harvest is very good for the environment.
Well, and I'm guilty of it too, like the cutthroat trout, and then Brian alluded to that. That was, I don't know if it was endangered, but it was, many years ago. I think it was, the populations were way, way down. I have a hard time keeping cutthroat trout, and I can count on one hand probably the number of cutties that I've kept. But there's a lot of fisheries where I probably should because it would be better for the habitat and for the population and help some of those grow bigger.
That's the hard is that mentality, the paradigm shift that needs to happen is there's people that do think that if you keep a fish that it's terrible. And a lot of purists unfortunately think that way. But there are some streams, especially just like the Provo River that's just in our backyard. There are too many fish, and they're not growing to the sizes that they used to grow to because there's just too many of them, and there's not enough food to support them. So if more people kept fish, it would be a healthier fishery. But
what are some great fisheries here in Utah for a guy that lives here? We're at the Western Hunting Expo. Let's go with the Utah theme. What are some great places a guy can go fish, and where can they get set up?
Other than the really good one that we go to, what are some good ones?
He's going to name out all these C-class rivers.
It kind of depends what you're looking for. If you want numbers of fish and accessibility, the Provo River is probably the easiest place that you can just go, jump on, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Strawberry Reservoir, we talked about that. There's plenty of fish in there, and there's quite a number of good fish. Flaming Gorge Reservoir has a ton of fish, and the surrounding areas on both of those, Strawberry and Flaming Gorge, have excellent both like trolling, gear fishing or fly fishing. So, like, whatever you're into, you can find it at those places.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a desert, Brian, so not a ton of water here.
Yeah.
Any place where there's a reservoir, there's going to be a tailwater.
Yeah.
Tailwaters are always pretty regulated with the temperatures and flows. So typically any of those places that you find that, there's going to be fish that are stocked in there, and so they're usually good spots.
But we have a lot of great high mountain streams, high mountain lakes, like hundreds and hundreds of them, and they hold brookies, cutthroat, maybe some rainbows, and those are all great fishing. And a guy can throw on a pack, hike up in there, get super remote. I mean, not even see another soul.
Yeah.
And you can catch brook trout all day long.
Court, tell us, as we wrap up here, tell us about Blue Halo. Is it bluehalogear.com?
It is. Yeah,
And,
Blue Halo gear.
And you guys sell those rods. Tell us about those rods.
They're pretty awesome. We when we started, it was before kind of the mainstream, I guess, bigger corporate companies started selling fiberglass too. We saw a need, and we just started to kind of bring back the old school technology and the old school feel.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in the 70s and 80s and stuff, pretty predominantly. But we make fiberglass rods and fly rods. And actually, a lot of people we sell blanks and pre-built rods. A lot of guys build on our blanks to do like ultralight spin fishing as well too. So
what's the benefit of a fiberglass rod? What's the pro and con?
Fiberglass is awesome because lots of good benefits. One, tippet protection. They're very bendable.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess, kind of like the ugly stick. Very tough. Yeah.
Okay.
So they bend further than graphite does before it breaks. So there are softer actions, which is a lot of people like that. They like the feel of fiberglass because you can feel everything. You can feel your line load up, everything. But because it does bend a lot, it protects your tippet and stuff like that from breaking. So when you catch fish, a lot of the energy is transmitted into your rod versus like the line. They're pretty too, like ours, all of our rods are translucent so you can see through them. So the light shines through them, makes them really bright and stuff. You can't do that with graphite.
Yeah.
Got some super cool colors.
Yeah, so we do a lot of different colors. And just recently we're going to launch a new rod series that is a hybrid rod. So we've taken like the very best of fiberglass and the benefits that fiberglass has, which being super tough and very bendable. And then we've combined it with all the best things of graphite. So we've got a hybrid rod that's built with all glass.
Sweet.
Well, there's glass that's kind of integrated into each piece of it.
Yeah.
And at different levels. And so it uses all those kind of, all those good characteristics of both. So they cast awesome. When you hook fish, you've got tipper protection. They're super duper tough, because graphite rods notoriously break after if they have a weak point, if they've been fractured by something or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't eliminate that, but it makes it better. So they cast awesome, they look awesome, and nobody's really doing that. So it's definitely a game changer.
Cool.
So,
well, folks, I encourage you to go check out Western Waters Media, check out Blue Halo Gear. Go on to Derek Olthuis
Trout Academy.
Trout Academy. Find him on Instagram. You both have some pretty cool pics that you share, and you drop knowledge on there. It's good stuff.
Not just cool, epic pics.
Yeah.
Video.
They really are.
Yeah.
So, thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Stay
boys.
gritty.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Fellow anglers and outdoorsmen, let me share a quote with you. There is a delight in the hardy life of the open. There are no words that can tell the hidden spirit of the wilderness, that can reveal its mystery, its melancholy, and its charm. The nation behaves well if it treats the natural resources as assets, which it must turn over to the next generation increased and not impaired in value. Conservation means development as much as it does protection. Those wise words are from Theodore Roosevelt. Please remember, that our right to fish depends on habitat. Let's be good stewards of our fisheries and fight to protect and preserve our public lands. Thank you for listening to the Gritty Angler Podcast. We appreciate your support and love hearing your feedback. As always, good luck on all of your fishing adventures and stay gritty.